Majority of the people have heard this name, Google Sheets, but they don't have the exact idea what is the powerful things a Google Sheet can do. Now, if you are a small business, in this video we are going to discuss what are the small tips, if I talk about, which are going to help you enhance your Google Sheets, which is only going to help you manage your business quite effectively. So let's quickly get started. Now, first of all, obviously, if you're not aware what is Google Sheet, so Google Sheet is basically a free alternative, if I talk about, to Microsoft Excel. Now, this is technically an online tool, so you don't have to download anything, and it works from your browser, and also it works on your mobile phone. Now, one thing, if I talk about personally from my experience, Google Sheet is quite effective, if I talk about, because it has so many functionality and it works simply out of the box. So it is a very simple tool to use, and obviously a lot of people, including myself, we use to manage our business over Google Sheets. Now, if I talk about what are the benefits of Google Sheets, if I talk about, so obviously it is free to use. Obviously there is a certain usage limit, but yes, technically if you're a small business and not having huge business requirement, if I talk about, it is free to use. It is customizable. The best part of Google Sheets is, if I talk about, is the customizability. It's quite effective. Then easy to analyze data. We are going to make a separate video on that, how you can easily analyze the data using Google Sheets. Then easy to add into workflows. Obviously, if I talk about in terms of Google environment, almost everyone who is using a smartphone these days is aware of Google environment, if I talk about. And obviously countless spreadsheet templates we have. So basically what happens, let's say you want to manage the leads, let's say you want to manage the CRM, let's say you want to manage the leads, if I talk about. So almost every kind of templates are available. Now, not every template is provided by Google, but all the other templates are provided by various third-party vendors. So it actually makes our job quite easier. Now, obviously, what we can do with Google Sheets, obviously, if you're not aware, we can actually send email using Google Sheets, if I talk about. So whenever you want to send email, when you make a comment on Google Sheet, you can actually do this particular part. So you have to be aware that you can actually send email through Google Sheets. The next point is, obviously, you can actually add heat map using conditional formatting. So basically what happens, like, let's say if you want to implement something where you can see what has happened, what changes have happened. So obviously using conditional formatting, you can make some heat maps. Then you can also clean up values. Now, this is very important. If your data is quite cluttered, you can actually clean up those values using these functions like clean and trim, which is going to make your data quite effective, and especially if you are analyzing the data. The next point is, which is quite important and I use regularly, is protecting the Google Sheet. Basically what happens, if you don't want anyone to actually make changes to that Google Sheet, or maybe you want certain people to make changes and rest everyone can just view that sheet, so you can actually protect your Google Sheet, which is so that nobody can actually access, or maybe I would say nobody will be able to make changes to that particular sheet if they don't have the required permissions. The next point is obviously validating data in cell. Now, in our company, when we use it, there are so many times that people actually put wrong values. So like, let's say if they have to put a number, they will put ABC. So you can actually validate this kind of data in the sheet. So let's say if someone is entering wrong format of the value, that is going to be rejected, or the input will not be taken, which is quite effective if I talk about for us. The next point is obviously integrating Google Forms. So let's say if you're taking surveys from the customers, let's say you're taking reviews from the customer. So you can actually integrate it with Google Forms. So that is going to give you a data, if I talk about, which is quite effective, with which you can do that. The best part here is that you don't have to do a lot of things. It can be integrated with one single click, if I talk about. The next point is creating QR code. Now, how many times you have to go to different number of websites, you have to create a QR code, and when you click on download, they say buy a paid version. So this is not a very impressive story if I talk about. So you can actually create QR codes using Google Sheet within Google Sheets, so that you don't have to jump into different websites and get data from there and actually find the QR code. So obviously these are the tips which we have for you related to Google Sheets. Now obviously if you have some questions, put them in the comment section. Well, what are some Google Sheets, like why Google Sheets important for my business? So try to understand Google Sheet is quite effective tool. I would not say that it is the only tool which you have to use, but it is quite an effective tool. Secondly, how can I use Google Sheets to benefit my small business? So obviously if you are working within a team, maybe let's say you have around 15 to 20 people, you all can share Google Sheet and you can actually make sure that nobody is actually accessing the wrong version of the Google Sheet with that. Now, is Google Sheet free for business use? Obviously, Google Sheet has a certain limit if I talk about. So if you're a business owner and if you're using within a certain limit, obviously that is free of cost. So this is it for this particular video on Google Sheets. Obviously, if you're looking for further tips related to how you can actually run your business in that scenario, please give us a comment, leave us a comment so we can answer your queries. So with this, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.